Hey guys, what we're going to be learning about today, where we just learned about shadows and everything, we're going to be learning about pseudo elements, and we're going to be using that, or pseudo states rather. Pseudo elements are different. Let's talk about pseudo states. So a pseudo state is like if you hover over a link, this gains the state hover. If you click on something, it gains the state of active or focused for an input. And so what we're going to be doing is we're going to be specifically styling an A link if you hover it. And so as you see, what I did there was you put the element name. It can be a class as well, so I could write more link on hover. And then you put a colon and then the hover word. So in this case, I'm going to apply it to all A elements. So A, colon, hover, and on hover, we want to, let's just make it really noticeable. Let's change the font size to 32 pixels. And you would never use this kind of style, but let's refresh. As you can see, when I hover over a link, it changes font size. It's a bit jittery because again, you wouldn't change the font size. Let's change the color. So, oops, not that element. Right down here, A hover. We're going to change the color to a shade of green. So let's say 8F8. And that's a weird green, but let's go with that. Refresh, and as you can see now, when you hover over a link, it's going to change to green except for this one. So let's go ahead and find out why. That's an A element that should be changing. And the reason is specificity. If I set this to important, and then save it and refresh, now it's going to apply to all links. This has two classes, so by styling that color, it's become more specific. So what we can do, if we don't want to add the important tag, just in case we want to overwrite it later, you can actually supply multiple elements to a rule. So in this case, I'm going to turn these into class references here. And I'm going to also put an A in front of this. So the way this reads is on A hover or A with a class of more link and with a class of bolded link, hover. So I'm going to save this and refresh, and now they all turn green when you hover over them. And that's just by using the specificity there instead of adding the important tag, because we want to add the important tag as minimally as possible, because once you get 1,000 or 2,000 lines into a CSS file, having important tags everywhere is kind of gonna become confusing and difficult to continue on with that. So it's not very maintainable. So where possible, just over specify if you need to instead of using the important tags. And that's the hover pseudo state. We also, I'm going to add an input here right above the top stories. So right here, I'm going to add an input. Placeholder is going to be search. And then the class is going to be my-input. We're going to save this and refresh that, and we've got our element there. So what I'm going to do is a few different things. Right at the bottom, I'm going to remove that paragraph rule because we're not using it. I'm going to say on the class my-input, did I put a dash in that? Let me go back. Yes. Okay. So we're now targeting this class. Again, class is preceded by a period. So my input, we're going to say display is going to be block. Width is going to be 100%. I'm going to put margin around it of 10 pixels. And let's save it and have a look now. Need to make this a bit wider so the full page It's in there. All right. So it's trailing off the side because the margin on the left. So what we're going to do is just set that to 90 for now. We're going to get into responsive stuff later on. What I'm going to do is I'm going to add padding inside of the element so that it looks nice. So I'm going to say 10 pixels by 20 pixels. Again, the first argument there is vertical and the second argument is horizontal. So now this is my element. I'm going to add border radius, and we're going to talk about this in the next video actually, so I'm going to leave that out for now. What I'm going to do is to demonstrate another pseudo-state, I'm going to say my input, put a colon there, and say focus. And I'm going to say what I want to happen on focused. So in this case, I just want the background to turn gold. And I'm going to use this color picker because gold is such a hard color to make. Let's go with really light green. There we go. And the color of the input now is going to be not red, it's going to be a dark green. So right about here, and then take the darkness down to like there. There we go. So I'm going to save this and I'm going to refresh this, and what you'll see is when we focus in and when we focus out, if this is focused, see how it gets the blue border around it? That, I think it's a border or a box shadow or something. It's an outline rather. It's an outline. And we can set that to not do anything. So let's set outline to none. Save, refresh. Now when we focus in, we don't get that outline. We do still have that old border change though. So let's say one more thing, border, 1 pixel, solid, and let's turn it black. Save and refresh. There we go. Looks like it's becoming a bit smaller. I think it's because the outline that should be around it. And we'll look into that another video. But when you type in, it becomes green. And when you click out, it's the regular black text. So that is a focused state. Now, there's one other one, and that is active. So I'm going to say on the stories here, I believe they have a class. It's an article. So I'm going to target article active, and I'm going to say opacity is going to be 0.4. So it's going to be partially transparent. So save this, refresh. And what happens is as long as you're holding down the mouse button, this is considered active. So those are the 3 pseudo-states that you're going to be working with in web design and any type of web application programming. These are not very accurate practical applications of these pseudo-states, but this demonstrates what they do. So, in the next video, we're going to be discussing border radius because that is a really fun thing to work with.